I'd like to continue with our mini-series in kashrus and go to actually my least favorite subject, which is insects and food. I tend to be entomophobic, so I don't like the whole thing. I don't like, but it is a very important part of Yiddishkeit and Shulchan Aruch. And I just want to tell you the way it works. We're talking about, there's a whole chelik of Yoredeya, which is called Hilchos Teiloim, appears twice in Yoredeya Pei Daled and again in Kuf Daled. A lot of halachas, again in Kuf Chav Gimel, a lot of halachas about Teiloim, and I'm just going to explain at least the first part of it, the nuance of it, which I feel people get wrong. I get pictures once in a while. People send me pictures of a worm coming out of a beet or something crawling around on a piece of lettuce, and I just think to myself, he's a good photographer. Takes very good pictures of worms, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have anything to do with Hilchos Teiloim per se, except for, of course, you're not allowed to eat that worm. But the way it works is as follows: that there is in general, in all of Shulchan Aruch, Arba Chelkei Shulchan Aruch, really, there's a din of certain things that need a badika. A badika means you have to check it, you can't assume, meaning something has a chazaka, let's say, and you have to check it. Like, we could assume many things. In your house, you assume many things are kosher. Your wife, you assume your wife is keeping kosher. A lot of things you could assume, and some things need a badika. Usually the badika is b'drabanan. For instance, when you check the cow, you need a badikas hareya. You check the lungs. When you, if there's a isha nita, so there's certain requirements on a vest for a badika. There's a badika twice in 7 years of a mezuzah. There's all kinds of badikas. So what does a badika means? Check to make sure it's good, like a car inspection. Like. Sometimes you need an inspection. Nothing wrong. Why do I need an inspection? You have to do an inspection. So the way that works is as follows: that normally you don't have to inspect anything as long as you have a rove. So a rove means the majority says it's okay. Majority of cows do not have a problem with their lung. Majority of cows are healthy. If it acts like it's sick, it's one thing. But the majority of healthy cows are healthy, and you don't have a problem with their lung. The majority of mezuzahs that you take down are kosher. If you put them up, they're kosher. You take them down, they're kosher. You open up your tefillin, if you bought kosher tefillin, unless there's some kind of reyes, so you left it on your car thing, on the windshield or something at this 150 degrees. Pashat pshat is it's kosher. However, certain things, so you go with rove. In the rice, so you always go with rove, and you don't have to check anything, just about anything. And miut doesn't count. Came Chazal, and they said that, look, if there's a miut hamatzui means that it's a minority, but it's a big minority. It's an important minority. It's 39%. It's 25%. It's not just a negligible amount. So that's called a miut hamatzui. So I'll tell you a klal of kol haTorah kula. Double click on this when you get home. That a miut hamatzui is called a rove d'Rabbanan. That's the klal. Meaning the same din of a rove. The Rabbanan came and said a miut hamatzui has the same din as that rove. So a miut hamatzui is a rove d'Rabbanan. So therefore, when it comes to our case of tolaim, of charakim, of insects in different vegetables and things like that. So if it's infested, so that's a rove, tells you it's not good. It's usher deraisa to eat something which is infested with bugs. You pick something up, you see it's infested, throw it away. There's nothing to do with it. You don't check it. It is what it is. It's a piece of celery full of bugs. If it's not infested, so then you want to know if there's a miut hamatzui or not. Miut hamatzui on vegetables is a science. It's not something which somebody sees in their kitchen or somebody establishes, or even some rabbi says somewhere in England. That's not the way it works. Miut hamatzui is a science. There are certain vegetables. You could Google this. There are certain vegetables. There are certain fruit, for that matter, which attract bugs. And those they're known to attract bugs. That's why they put pesticides on them. That's why they worry about these bugs. They worry about the quality of the bugs. I don't know if they're worried about the koshers of it, but they're worried about the bugs anyway. So the only thing, most vegetables, you could go with rove. Probably rove. Rove, if you open up a lettuce, rove in a lettuce does not have bugs on it unless it's infested. However, if it's a min, if it's a type of a vegetable, leafy vegetables, there's a list. If there's a type of a vegetable which has in it a miut hamatzui, so the miut hamatzui is mechayivas and a badika. And that's the way it works. There's, once again, I keep saying this in the shiur, there's room for science, but science with chachma, science with Torah. So the science is that's very, very clear which minim attract bugs. Usually, for instance, earth vegetables usually don't attract any bugs. They don't bother. Bugs come from soil. Usually bugs come from soil, not from the vegetable itself. So hydroponic bugs, for instance, the whole purpose of that is to get rid of the miut hamatzui. Let me explain that. We used to have gush katif. Hashem took that away from us so far. We had gush katif. Gush katif had developed a technology which was almost bug-free. All the vegetables that they grew in the hothouses, etc., there were either quadroponic, growing on water, so they didn't have the soil. They weren't fighting the soil. They put in the same nutrients that you would get from the soil. It was a brilliant and genius Israeli thing to create this whole shita gush katif. Gush katif is no more, but now that company doesn't exist. But now it went from a company to a shita. So when you go into a restaurant or a hotel or the store and you see gush katif, it's not gush katif. They went with the shita of gush katif, of how to make the vegetable less buggy and still have the nutrients and still have the flavor and still have that. So that's a shitas gush katif. That's you have alei katif, this katif and that katif. It's all the katif shita that someday somebody will have to remind you, oh, that comes originally from gush katif. That's the history of the word. What do? You still could find a bug in a lettuce coming from gush katif. You could find a bug, but they took away the miut hamatzui. Since they took away the miut hamatzui, so now your chiyuv badika is no longer there. Now they say on the package, they used to say on the package, rinse it under water. Now they say put it in soap water for a few minutes and then rinse it under water. I'm not sure what changed over there. Maybe it depends on which company it is and how much katif they do in this katif. This I don't know. You have to check why they say what they say. But I'm just telling you the lumdus of it. So the lumdus of it is that not every time you find a bug in something does that mean that the whole min is just inedible and you can't do it. And it's not something that you find. This is something which is known in science, not in the laboratory of your kitchen necessarily. If it has a min of matzui of teilayim, so then there's chayiv b'badika. Then you have to do the badika of that teilayim, and then we'll learn a little bit further. I'm not going to make a demonstration here, but what does that mean to do a badika of teilayim? Thank you. The shiur this morning is at 9:15. Everyone's invited.